All right, we're looking good. What's going on, everyone? I'm Harris Rubenstein. Welcome to the newest edition of the Magic Gaming Esports Academy presented by Florida Blue. I am with a very special guest today. I'm going to give him like a WWE intro because, why not? Why not add a little excitement to a Wednesday? This is Coach Adam Antor, the director of Florida Southern College Esports, a two-time Esport Collegiate Ambassador of the Year at the Esport Awards. Congrats to him. Also hearing that you're going to be going to the Esport Awards soon, so I'm definitely going to ping you on that. Coach Adam, thank you for joining us today. It's great to be here with you.
Thanks for having me.
Another person, like we said, another old head.
That's what it feels like. I am surrounded by young people all the time. I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah,
so.
I feel every draft class we do in the 2K League, they're 18, 19, 20, and I'm like, I'm like a decade older than everybody now. But no, thank you for coming along with us today. We appreciate you being a part of our academy. So let's start with a little background on you. Not everybody, I'm sure you didn't start off as the director of esports at Florida Southern College. So take me through it. How did you end up here? By the way, you have a friend in the chat. Sari says also an NAECAD Coach of the Year.
Yeah,
love that.
Yeah.
So how'd you get
I've been at Florida Southern for just over a year. Before this, I started another program at Aquinas College up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was their head esports coach, and then right before that, I was at a high school as their marketing director. And at that place is where I saw a kid wearing a CSGO jersey and was like, hey, let's start a gaming club that turned then into an esports team. And then kind of like led me down this spiral of esports.
That's how it starts. There's always like, it's like a, I don't know if you're familiar with baseball, but it's like the Milwaukee Brewers slide. Like they go down and you just keep sliding more and more.
Yeah.
So talk to me about like those first initial days then, you're figuring out the esports space, you're setting up this club. When did you realize that you wanted to do the coaching side of it instead of maybe being on the player side of it?
The day I was offered the full-time job at Aquinas College.
Nice.
I started this club at the high school. I still game with my high school buddies, and my hope was to create that same opportunity to create lifelong friendships with the students at the school I was working at, as I had. So I just started a club, and then we found out we had 3 seniors who were really good at Rocket League. So we entered this like national league, ended up placing 4th in the country. And then like the next fall, we raised $35,000 to build the first esports lab at a high school in the state of Michigan.
Cool.
And then like right after that, a college started asking me questions about esports, and that college, after I answered a lot, ended up offering me a job. But the funny thing is, like 2 months before I got that job offer, I saw a listing at another school in my area in Michigan, and I absolutely laughed at it. I was like, this is stupid. Why would anyone like go full time into esports? Like, this is just going to be a fad. It's going to fade, like just fizzle out. I just don't understand it. And then like 2 months later, I ended up taking a full-time job and have not looked back since. It's been awesome.
And it sounds like, you kind of, I don't want to say you got thrust into like kind of actual coaching of esports, because it sounds like you had the organizational side of it. It's like, okay,
I was not coaching.
Yeah, what is coaching?
I'm still not coaching. Like at the high school level, it was literally, I always say this, and I even say this now, is like most of my job, like I unlock the door, and that at the high school level was a literal thing. Like we had a lab, I unlocked it every day, and they just kind of ran in and played. It's become more of less of a literal thing now, and more of like figuratively, like unlocking opportunities for students. Mm-hmm. But I have never been more than or better than average at any game. But I've been able to, I guess, find opportunities for students to kind of follow their passions and make something more out of their education if that's what they want.
Quick tangent. What is your favorite game?
I play a lot of League of Legends, and I'm pretty okay at Rocket League.
Okay.
Right now, don't judge me. I just downloaded Disney Dreamlight game, and it's like Animal Crossing but Disney.
Cool.
I needed a game that was not competitive. And I
Ah,
kept seeing raving reviews on this. It was on Xbox Game Pass, so I got it for free. I started playing, and now I'm hooked.
I was about
So
to
I
point you.
am.
I was like, God of War Ragnarok just came out, but you're telling me you're an Xbox guy, so I don't know. We
I'm not
might
even,
have some
no,
problems.
PC. I'm a PC guy.
Oh, okay,
But
PC guy. Got it. Okay,
yeah, I've got the Game Pass on PC. So
got it.
I just needed a change of pace. Like the esports titles, like they can be, they just grind on your mental if you play them too much, especially if you're not good. So yeah, I needed a change of pace.
So let's talk about what you're currently doing at Florida Southern College. See, I almost got slipped up
Yeah.
on the university.
You're
So it
good.
sounds like you've been doing, or you were doing, a lot of directorial stuff before you actually got this job. Now you've been kind
Yes,
of you've more the role or the title now more fits the role for you. So
for
what
sure.
would you say is the biggest difference between what you used to do in Michigan versus what you're doing now, besides getting to
Yeah.
wear bathing suits instead of sweatpants?
So the difference between kind of where, or I guess there's big differences between schools right now of where esports is housed and how it's viewed by the school. At my last school, it was strictly under athletics. I was recruiting students to compete, and that was my entire job. It was recruit students and then for like develop that talent and compete, and that was it. Like that was the end. I brought 30 new students to Aquinas, did my job, did what they wanted me to do. But coming to Florida Southern, they had bigger expectations and bigger dreams for what esports and gaming could do on campus. So I'm under athletics for our varsity portion, but I also report to the dean of students and the student life department. And that is to create opportunities for students not in the varsity program within esports and gaming. So one of those opportunities is we have this esports arena on campus that's open to all students to come in and play casually whenever they want. I oversee that space in addition to our varsity program. I also work with our rec department to run intramural tournaments, things of that sort. But instead of just impacting the 30 students in varsity, now I have an opportunity to impact our entire student body. And that changes my day to day, and that changes the expectations of my role.
And I think I don't want to say people get the wrong idea when they think about esports, but maybe they have a different idea. Like esports is not always people competing at the absolute 100% highest level, like $1 million pots. Like for some people, like esports is a community building thing. It's a like, you're dealing with kids 18 to 21. A lot of those kids just play video games and they want to play, we'll do a Super Smash Bros tournament or, whatever. I remember when I was in college, we didn't have an esports program. We would just bring each other's PlayStations to each other's rooms and we would just do like a mini LAN tournament. So it's cool to kind of give, I guess, college kids that platform that's a little bit more organized. They feel like they're a little bit more a part of something rather than it just being like a dorm room activity.
For sure, for sure. And I think it's really important for people to start realizing, or universities to start realizing there's more to esports than just the varsity side of things and the competitive side. Like I said, instead of only impacting 30 students, now you can impact a large portion of your student population. Just this fall in our arena, over 5% of our total student body have come in and used a PC just for fun, casually. And almost half of them are women, and almost half of them are non-white students. So we're talking about a very diverse group of students who have found good PCs and good internet access, and they don't have to pay anything, and they can come in whenever. And that opportunity, I think, is really exciting for both colleges, but also students, and then for us as directors. Yeah, it's been fun. It's a lot to think about because it's not just like, hey, go win a championship. It's, hey, come up with creative ideas to engage students who all like different games. And that can be intimidating, but it's also exciting.
Community engagement in esports is hard, and it's interesting because there's a conversation going on in the 2K League right now. It's like, how do you reach out to those kids who are 12 to 17 and kind of get them into the esports path, or into the pipeline? And kind of what you're doing is the same thing, right? 18 to 21, getting these kids into cool opportunities where they kind of warm up to the opportunity, and maybe like they start as a freshman, by the time they're the senior, they kind of have a full-blown passion for it. And you've been working with kids for a long time now, whether it's in high school, now here in college. It's like, how have you kind of seen collegiate esports as a whole change? Has it become more community-based, or do you see it going much more the competitive route?
I mean, when I was a student, I was in college back in 2014. It was strictly community. I mean, the first varsity program I think started in maybe 2014 or 2016 at Robert Morris, and everything else was clubs, like student clubs, like you're talking about lands. I used to do like Halo 3 lands in the academic buildings when I was a student. And now what we're seeing is this growth of the varsity side, and we're up to like 400 colleges and universities across the country that now even give scholarships for it. And most of that investment is on the competitive side of things. It's a lot harder to convince an administrator to invest in the community side because when you look at the community side of gaming, it's a supplemental opportunity for students who are already at your school versus the competitive side. Varsity, you're recruiting new students to come in, pay tuition. It's a business decision.
Right.
But increasingly, colleges are becoming more aware of how important retention is, mental health for their students, et cetera. And that's where the community side can really, really help bolster those numbers and experiences for students.
And I like how you kind of talked about before about how you guys have a set space in the college that is for something like this. Stuff like that's so important because, community building and trying to get those things kind of rolling. So much of it is based on having like an HQ or a headquarters, somewhere where people can go. Like, look, a Discord group is great, right? Text some friends, hey, let's hop on, play some Call of Duty. But it's a whole other experience when you actually get to, be around people, experience it like firsthand with others that love it. Do you see more colleges like starting to trend more towards kind of having those zones, arenas, kind of clubs that you're mentioning, or is it just continuing? Like, are they getting their own arenas?
Yes, absolutely. Arena might be a little bit of
a little over the top.
Interesting term. For us, we call it an arena. It has a small stage in it.
Sure.
Our space is awesome compared to what most schools are getting. Most schools are getting really cool computer labs is more what I would look at it as. Some of them are getting kind of like computer labs, but with some like space to intermingle, study, etc., which is really exciting. But a lot of schools are getting these spaces. Even USF in Tampa has built a space. UCF is talking about it. I don't know if they've fully built it yet. But you're seeing even these big D1 schools who aren't investing in the varsity side, but are investing in some of the community side, are starting to build spaces. And that's been really awesome. And it makes clubs a lot easier to organize and keep excited because those clubs don't have to go through a different office. There's already good internet, good PCs, good consoles, whatever they need, kind of in one space. So it makes organizing community efforts a lot easier too.
Well, talking about the future of collegiate esports, we'll start with you, and then we'll again kind of expand outwards. For you, like what would you say your biggest goal is? We're about to end 2022. We're about to go into 2023. Yeah. What would you say your biggest goal is to try to continue to advance what you're doing? Because it sounds like we're all kind of on the cutting edge, right? We all have very 2022 jobs. But what are you trying to do to kind of stay on that edge on the collegiate side?
I think right now for me, a lot of my efforts and goals are focused on community building and impacting more students than just the ones in my varsity program. Because when I can come to an administrator and say, hey, I've brought 30 new students or whatever, how many students I have, I've made a great experience for them. Like, that's great. But what happens when I can say, hey, we've had 10% of our entire student body use our space. They're averaging 40 hours a semester in playing games, et cetera. That speaks a lot heavier to the impact that gaming and esports can have on a campus. And I think when we talk about the future of esports on a campus, I think what we're going to start seeing is instead of just esports, it's going to be esports and gaming. Because I think when we talk about esports, like, yeah, it's exciting. We're talking about just the competitive side, but there's so much more. Esports is only 1% of the gaming industry. Yep. And I think we can impact our students way more if we look outside of just esports. I mean, when we look at like some of the top games in our arena, most of them are esports ones, but you've got a lot of students who like playing single player games. We see Red Dead Redemption, a couple students playing that. And then we just have a lot of students who don't like competitive stuff. They just want to game with friends. So we see that as well. But I think just the impact that gaming and esports can have in higher education. There's just so much potential, and we haven't even talked about the academic side. I mean, we have a minor in esports management and a certificate in our MBA program at this point. And we're one of the first in Florida, but they're continuing to be more and more of those types of opportunities from an academic side for students across the country, which is really exciting too.
So I want to ask you about the esports minor here in a second, but the first question I want to ask is what have you found to be the biggest barrier for entry in terms of like getting students in the door? Like, is it an outreach problem? Is it like a social media problem where you just can't like get the right channels to get to them? Like, what have you kind of found has been your biggest wall to bust through?
I mean, the biggest barrier for I think most directors, but also students who want to get things started on their campus, is administrators who just don't understand the potential and what gaming is. I mean, even for me, like I have a super supportive administration, but they still have like they don't fully comprehend of what we're doing, what we can do. Sure. I'm still kind of up against it. Like, why do you need that? All of our other sports teams don't have that. It's like, well, we can do way more than the other sports teams do.
Right.
So I think right now it's an education problem, and it has been since the beginning. And then, I would say that's like the biggest barrier. And I don't have an answer to all of that. Like I'm still working through some of that. And administrators and different schools respond differently to different numbers. I know for smaller institutions, most of the varsity programs right now are at small schools, and it's because the tuition benefit from recruiting new students is so great, it's almost a no-brainer.
Right.
But at the bigger schools, they're not necessarily like fighting over small numbers of students. So, yeah, unique challenges.
It also kind of feels like the real future. Well, not say the real future, but like one of the futures of esports in college is kind of like the intramural side. Like I remember when I went to college, I always had like a ton of intramural sports for people who didn't want to like play competitively on the JV or varsity teams. Like hell at Emerson, man, we had intramural Quidditch. So like literally, if you want any sort of faith of knowing if esports is going to end up catching on, Quidditch caught on at certain universities. So I'm sure there has to be some sort of barrier of like, for sure, get something in there.
There's some that we're seeing a lot when the D1s are getting into esports. Oftentimes, for the most part, it's ending up under rec sports right now, and it's under intramurals. And I think it's an easy way to get things started from an administrator standpoint there, but it severely limits what you can accomplish, because when you put something under intramurals, you automatically get compared to other intramurals, and the cost of running intramurals is so low. Like when you start an intramural basketball league, you don't have to build a basketball court. Like there's already one in your rec center.
That's a great point.
But when you start an esports intramurals program, you have to build a space. So that's a really tough sell. And you're not even talking about coaches or scholarships or maintaining that space going forward. Like it's not a massive investment, but it's way more than just starting new intramural stuff.
It's money it's money tough. At a college or university. It's always
right.
You're always trying to pull
there's money. You just got to find out where it's at.
There's money until there's not. That's the old saying.
Well, that too. Yeah, that too.
Let's talk about this cool minor program that you guys have started. Obviously, being the director of an esports program is not just about, just getting people to play games. It's about educating and getting people kind of into the actual profession of esports. So talk to me about this minor. What have you guys kind of done to legitimize this minor? And also what are some of the successes that you've seen so far since starting it?
Yeah, so I'm not an academic person, and I have no say in the minor. This came completely from the business school.
Oh, wow.
The business school, they heard about esports. They started doing some research. Obviously, I answer some of their questions, but this is a completely different initiative from a different department on campus, and they have really fully embraced the possibility or the idea of an academic program within esports management, and they're running with it. They love it. They're excited about it. I answer some questions. Maybe I'd love to teach a course at some point, but right now it's not even my Like, I don't even oversee it.
Have you seen crossover between the kids who have I call them kids, between the college students who have taken the minor and have come over to your club, or is it more just like, here are the business people, here are the gamers?
The students we recruit in, none of them are esports management minors. A couple of them have picked up the intro class because they thought it would be an easy class for them and maybe they like it.
Classic college.
There's actually not a lot of crossover. Like the students who are in the minor, like they want to learn esports, the industry, and they want to do something else besides being a gamer. And that's exciting. Some of those students help out in our program, but they're not on the teams. And for me, that's really exciting. It's not very logical for my administrators to think through, but it's cool, and shows exactly kind of the possibilities of esports. Like there's just so many things to do. I mean, you're not a pro gamer and you're doing stuff. Like I'm not a pro gamer and I'm doing stuff. Like that's so that for some reason, for anyone outside of the industry, that is like such a, like, I don't know, mind-blowing moment or statement. It's like
stumble into it. I find that like as great as it is for like education and gaming, the coolest part about esports is that it's kind of like Narnia. Like you just kind of open up a door and then all of a sudden you're like, holy cow, I am in Florida being an esports director. Like it's wild.
That's actually really accurate.
Yeah,
I've never thought about it that way. Like,
dude, I got hired by the NBA when I was 23 years old to run social media for an esports league that I didn't even know exists. Wham! 5 years later, I'm like the lead analyst. Like I don't. These things just kind of poof and they happen. It's like the wildest thing.
That's awesome. That's crazy.
One more question on esport future. Then I want to get into like the mental health aspect of your job. What do you think the potential like for broad spectrum collegiate esports? Like what do you believe is like the best case scenario for collegiate esports? Is it every single team has a varsity team like college football? Is it more community based and competitive based? Is it a nice mixture of both? Like what do you envision kind of the best way to get to the finish line, I suppose?
The best way is that it's both. Okay. The best way is that it's both. It's you have the competitive side, you create fan bases around the competitive side, you have player development on the competitive side, but you can't forget about the non-competitive side. I mean, there's just so much potential there. We have so many gamers on our campuses that need community, and we cannot just let that not develop. And I think that's the important takeaway. I think is like it's not one or the other. Like with the community without the varsity or the competitive side doesn't bring resources. Like no one's paying the bills for community right now. But the competitive side is only affecting 30 students versus way more that can benefit from it.
I find that people also don't realize how large gaming actually is. Just in terms of people who play video games, like I think people always assume, right, when you're talking about video games, you have a controller or a mouse and keyboard. But for instance, like my fiance, she plays as many mobile games as I play PlayStation 5 games. So she's a little gamer, but when I bring it up to her, she's like, no, they're just phone games. I'm like, that's a video game. Like, when I was in college my senior year, they used to do mobile gaming hangout sessions where like a floor or something would just kind of like meet in a common area, and they would all play either one or different phone games, and they would just all be passing around phones or playing chess or something. It was fun just kind of see how large gaming truly is. But let's cut over to the mental health side of esports, because while this is a great profession and it's super fun to get into, it's a lot of work and it can take a toll on anyone, just like anything can. But as a director of a program, what is it like dealing with the mental health side for your students? Like, do you find that you have more of a hands-on approach for that, or is it really just for you that idea of, hey, I've given you a space, kind of, take your time, take your mental health breaks, or are you a little bit more hands-on?
You've got to be hands-on and not necessarily, I mean, everyone's going to have a different approach to it and a different comfort level. Thankfully, like for me, I've had my own mental health struggles, so I understand how it can feel going through some of that stuff. So I have some of the vocabulary and experience of like being able to talk through it, but I where I take it is like I recognize it, I start a conversation, and then I push them to campus resources that we have. Like we have a counseling center on campus, and at both of my last two jobs, that is one of the first departments that I called and set up a meeting and found out what do we offer students, because I know I'm going to need it,
Right.
and I've had to refer students to the counseling center just because they needed someone to talk to and talk through some stuff. And it's a very common thing, and it's a common thing for regular traditional sports athletes too. It's a common thing for all students and people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important to be able to have those conversations and know the resources that are available.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we talk about the competitive side and mental health, like my hope and my vision is that one day every competitive team, at least at like the D1 level and the big major programs, have their own performance psychologist on staff working specifically with esports, because we've worked with a sports psychologist before at my last school, and the benefits that it can bring to a program and to students is immeasurable. And we're not even talking about competition. Like, yes, it benefits competition and how and performance, but it also like benefits the students and their mental health just greatly. So.
And it's kind of one of those things where, as great as gaming is, it can be very isolating. At the end of the day, if you're just sitting at your computer playing video games, you're just kind of there alone. So it can kind of be difficult to, get yourself in and out of different difficult situations. I don't need you to bring up any like specifics, but
yeah.
In terms of again, like dealing with the student aspects of it, have you noticed a difference between, or shouldn't say notice a difference. What would you say the biggest difference is between kind of dealing with mental health yourself as more of an adult versus seeing what kids go through? Use them again, kids. What college students go through on that side. I have to remember they're 18 to 21.
Yeah.
If somebody called me a kid at 18, I'd be like, hey, I'm a young adult.
Yeah. I mean, when I had my like first real mental health stuff come up when I was a young adult, and I had no idea what was going on. Like it was lonely. It was confusing. I didn't know what to do. And students have that type of experience, unless if they've kind of grew up with it and maybe in high school were pushed to resources. But for the most part, most of them don't. Most of them don't recognize that maybe it's time to talk to somebody. They don't even know like this is something that's going on until it's like way too much to handle. And then we all find out like, okay, we need to take a step back and talk about this and find somebody for you to connect with. But I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's hard being a young adult right now. I mean, anytime, but like right now it's hard. And it's hard being an adult in the room right now. I mean, I'm navigating political correctness on top of the mental health stuff. Like it's a lot. Like I'm gonna be real. Like I'm learning every day. Like the goal, it's always about being loving and respectful and understanding and finding the resources that students need. That it's not easy. It's not easy.
Well, like I mentioned at the top, right? We're kind of old heads, so there's always going to be a learning curve when it comes to learning, how to keep, adults and young adults kind of comfortable inside of their own circles. Because at the end of the day, community building is a lot. At the end of the day, is a lot about just making people feel comfortable in a specific space. So I'm sure for you, the amount of people that you must meet, especially on the gaming side, so many, just so many different, I guess, cut from so many different cloths, I should say.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you face quite many challenges, but does that ever wear on you? Like, having to manage so much, all these guys, all these girls, everybody in between. Like, how do you kind of manage yourself now at this age?
Work in progress.
Like all of us. Right?
I mean, it's really important for coaches and directors and adults in any space to like be cognizant of where they are mentally and to kind of find the resources they need when they need them. I'm very keen to where my mental is from a day-to-day perspective, and I know what I should be doing to kind of better that. Whether that's take a walk, just stop playing video games for a couple days, like whatever it is, but that's been from my journey,
Of
like
course.
my journey and my experience. Like I've learned how I recognize some of those and deal with those, but it's not easy.
Mm.
I've seen a lot of coaches and directors over the last couple of years leave after a year or two on their job because it's just too emotionally draining and too mentally draining for them. And we've seen a lot of turnover because I mean, being a coach just in general it's a lot mentally, it's a lot emotionally, and it's a lot usually physically and all of it. Long hours, lots of nights, lots of weekends, a lot of carrying the emotions
Computers.
of your
Oh.
students and computers. Yeah, if I have to build another chair,
I'm
I
done. Yep.
putting
I've built
gaming
one.
chairs
Yep.
together is terrible. One time, if you get a gaming chair, sure, put it together. But when you get 24, I am no.
Oh.
I never want to look at a gaming chair again. But yeah, it is. It's a lot. And right now with how esports is understood by administrators, there's just not enough support for coaches and directors. And I mean, you look at some of my traditional sports counterparts. I'm the only sport on campus that has 30 students and doesn't have a second full-time person.
Oh wow.
And we're working on it. I think hopefully for next year they're adding one, but that is a very common thing across the country with esports programs is you have one person in charge who's supposed to be coaching 4 different game titles with different practice times and et cetera. And they're doing it alone. And that's a lot. So.
It sounds like a lot. I could barely get through one game of Warzone with my friends. Trying to coach like legitimate, college kids.
Yeah.
So before we close out, let's talk a little bit more about the future in 2023 or just beyond. You have this great, you're again finalist for Collegiate Ambassador of the Year at the Esports Awards.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
When this is the second time, like I mentioned, that you've gotten this. How does it feel to kind of get? I don't want to say recognition's the wrong word, but just approval and recognition, all these great things that come along with being a finalist. How did you feel when you got the first one? How did you feel when you got the second one? Because one time, whatever, 2 times, now we're talking.
Imposter syndrome, I think is kind of like a thing now.
Classic.
But I mean, when you don't get it, it hurts. But when you do get it, it feels like you don't deserve it. And I say that also because like me and most of my colleagues have only been doing what we're doing for 2-3 years.
Sure.
I mean, collegiate esports is so new. And some of these awards, like if I were to compare them to a different industry, it's like, this is what you like aspire your entire career to get. And then I'm getting it like my second year on the job. Like what? I recognize that I'm doing things right.
Yep.
Some things right. I get a lot of things wrong. I'm learning. So are all my colleagues and my counterparts. But it feels weird, and I don't appreciate them until way after it's over. Like I started appreciating the first finalist thing a couple months after, but the first time I got nominated, I mean, it hurt thinking about how much it hurt not getting it. I do esports photography on the side.
Oh, cool.
And the Esports Awards just started the Collegiate Award last year, but they've done Photographer of the Year for a couple of years. And like when I started doing photography, like my goal was to be an Esports Awards finalist, and I thought it was going to be a photographer. And every year I wouldn't get it, and it hurt so bad. And then they add a Collegiate Award. I'm doing Collegiate, and I get a finalist. And all I could think of is like the other coaches and directors who are putting in so much time and learning still and making less mistakes than I am, and the feeling of not getting it. That's what sticks with me. So that keeps me grounded. But I mean, it's cool. I love being recognized. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like I like it. It's cool. Like it's fun.
I want to be a finalist for an esports award.
Hey, one day, like
maybe.
It's out there. I mean, join a category that's small, like collegiate.
Yes, the small category of esports caster of the year. Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah,
tiny,
exactly.
No competition.
You're gonna be going.
It's
Exactly.
not like 50 other esports. Nah, you're fine.
Yeah, you got. I mean, well, yeah. You look at like the caster of the year or streamer of the year award. Like all those people average like 3K viewers at least on Twitch. And you're like, can't make that. But
I just got denied for Twitch partner
collegiate.
today, so that should tell you how close I am.
Oh,
To that award.
I'm sorry. Almost there.
Nah, it's fine. Yeah, it's all about the grind. I like what you said though about how
For sure.
you started. You got into this thinking, okay, I want the award for esports photography.
Yeah.
And my saying when it comes to esports is that you should always expect the unexpected. So how unexpected for you
True.
to not get the photography with something completely different?
It's very unexpected.
Collegiate ambassadorship.
I didn't think there would ever be a collegiate award.
But that's the essence of esports, right? You expect the unexpected, and then all of a sudden, wham, you're traveling to Europe to broadcast. Like it's just it's the craziest stuff. So I commend your diligence and also your ability to category hop. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I guess in esports, they let anybody in. Yeah, they let anybody in. Last thing here before we close out. Anything you want to plug? Anything cool that you have up and coming that you want the people to know about before we go?
Oh gosh,
Any
no,
socials?
I'm heading to the Esports Awards next weekend. Everybody should tune in and watch. It's a cool night, really fun. My Twitter is where I'm most active, and it's at Coach Antor. Yeah, I mean, I don't even have my spring schedule yet, so I don't know what to plug, but Florida Southern College, we're doing stuff, and we're always looking for new ideas. So if you've got something to want to collaborate on, let me know.
Well, dude, hey, remember, it's Florida Southern College, not Florida Southern University. College.
It's fine. Yeah,
to me.
True.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on this Magic Gaming Esports Academy presented by Florida Blue. Coach, thank you for coming along with us and answering some great questions. You did a wonderful job. I see why you're getting, maybe we'll see you give another great speech on the award in a couple of weeks. So.
Oh, I better write it. Yeah.
We wish you the best of luck. Everybody, thank you for joining us. Obviously, you can catch this interview here on the Magic Gaming YouTube channel, and we'll see you guys for our next seminar in a couple weeks. But for now, we'll see you guys. Have a safe couple of weeks, and we'll see you on the other side of Christmas. Peace.